Hi everyone, Jackie here. Just wanting to share a project with you today. Kathy sent me a box of Arty products the other day from their Embrace Change collection, and I've made up 3 projects. So one is a scrapbook page using stencils, some of the fussy cut images, and there's a couple of stencils used in that one. There's also a rectangle card that I've made using some of the stamps and some of the images that I've coloured myself, and I've also made a square card using one of the backgrounds of the scrapbooking papers. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make one of these, and if you've got any of the products or would like any, get them from www.eclecticimages.com, and you can play along with me if you've got any of these images. So this is the card we're going to make today, the square one. So let's get started. Using some of the BeeArty Embrace Change collection, I will be using this piece of scrapbook paper, which is called Spice, and I'm going to use this background here to make a square card. Okay, first, to get started, I'm going to create a colour wash background. I'll just move this one out of the way and bring in a piece of cotton blend cardstock. Now this one's a 210 GSM, and I'm going to add some Colour Blast colour shimmer dusts to this to create a bit of a background that I can die cut some leaves out of later. So I'm adding a little bit of amber shimmer dust to my page. Then I'm going to add a bit of candy. And then a touch of Lush. I don't want too much green on the page, just a little bit, because the background's already got that bluey green colour to it. Okay, so I've just got that little bit of shimmer dust over the top of the page now, and I'm going to use my water sprayer to spritz some water. So to do this, I'm going to start up high and just let the spray fall down onto the card. As the card starts to get some water on it, you'll see that it's bending. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift it up and give the back a little bit of a spritz, and magically my paper will flatten out again. So now I can come in a little bit closer with my spray. Now I've got a lot of water on there. I'm going to use a mop brush, moisten it a bit with what's on the edge, and then I'm just going to pounce over the area. I'm going to use a bit of paper towel to wipe my brush off, because if I keep going I'm just going to end up with this brown mess. And I'm just going to blend a little bit between the colours. Okay, that's pretty much where I want it. I might just add one more little spritz of water to it, and I'm going to let it do its own thing. I'll put this one aside to dry, and we'll move on to our next part of the card. Pop that one over there. Okay, so for the next piece, out of this cardstock, I've got another one of these. I've cut out a 15 by 15 centimetre piece square out of it. That's that one. And now I'm going to use the Cascading Leaves stencil from the Embrace Change collection, and I'm going to place that over cardstock, and I'm going to add some Versamark ink through the stencil. Now I'm just going to put a little bit of tape on the back of this to hold it so it doesn't move while I'm adding that. So I've just got a little bit of low-tack tape. I'll just hold it on the back so the stencil doesn't move. Alright, and I've got my Versamark ink, which is a colourless sticky ink, and I'm just going to press it over the openings of the stencil all the way across. So what this is going to do is transfer those opening parts of the stencil onto my background cardstock, and then I will have a stickiness to them. And to that I could add embossing powder and emboss it, or I could leave it and just have it like a slight watermark on the background. But what I'm going to do today is to brush some mica powder over this, and the mica powder will stick to that stickiness on the card. Alright, I just want to make sure I've got plenty of ink on here. I'm using a small Versamark ink pad because the large one I find a lot harder to work around. This one I can see where I'm going and which bits I'm covering. Okay, I'm pretty sure that one's pretty well inked now, so I'll pop the lid back on my ink pad, and then I'm going to remove my tape from the back of the stencil, pop the stencil aside to clean later. I'll take my tape off. There we go. And onto that I've got two colours of Colour Blast Colour Mica powder here. I've got Espresso, which is a lovely browny shade, and I've got Polar, which is a blue. I'm just going to add bits of both over the area. I'm going to use the lids of these mica powders, and I've got a fluffy brush here. I'm just going to dip a little bit, brush in just a tiny bit, and then tap it into the lid and swirl it around a bit, and then just circle this over the page. Give it a bit of a brush off on my hand, and then I'm going to go into the Espresso. Do the same, tap it around, a bit of a swirl, and then over onto the background. I'm swirling it over the top of where that Versamark ink is, and the ink's picking up that mica. I'll just move it a bit in the light, hopefully you can see that shimmer. And just a bit more of the Polar. There's still enough left in the lid from before. And tap some on and then swirl it around. Now there's a few spots there where I don't think it's very dark. I'm just going to add just a little bit more powder. And swirl over the top. Okay. I think just a little bit more of the brown over here. Okay. Just a little bit more blue down there. Now this will give some shimmer over the whole card, but it will only stick to where the embossing, the sticky ink is, where the Versamark is. So now that I've got it on, I'm just going to put the lids back on that so I don't spill them. And pop them out of the way. Okay, now I'll just brush it off, and I'm going to go just lightly over the whole card, brushing off so that any of that loose mica powder is gone off the card. And we'll pop that one aside. The next step, while we're still waiting for that background to dry a little bit more, I'm going to grab a scrap of cotton blend cardstock, and I'm going to add a stamp from the BeeArty Say It stamp set, which also comes in the collection. So it has a lot of lovely sayings on here. Celebrate, friends forever, embrace change, hello happy, thinking of you, make a wish, you are beautiful, anniversary, you are enough. So lots of lovely sentiments on there. I'm going with thinking of you for this one. So I'll pop that to the side. I've already placed the stamp onto an acrylic block. Because I haven't used this one before, I find if I run an eraser over the top of that, just gently rubbing it, it will take off any of the manufacturing oils that are left on there. Sometimes when you first ink up an acrylic stamp or a polymer stamp, you find sometimes the ink beads up on them. The reason for that is there's still stuff left from the manufacturing process on them. So I just give them a quick wipe over with the eraser, and I find that it takes my ink a lot better. So I'm going to use VersaFine Onyx Black ink for this one. So I'm just going to take my ink pad to the stamp and tap on it. Gently make sure I've got a nice coverage of ink on there, and just a little bit more. And then pop my lid back on the ink. And I'm going to centre this on this piece, on this strip of card, and place it down gently on the paper. You don't want to press too much because it can squish the stamp a little bit, and you don't want it squished out to make it thick in areas. You want it nice, even pressure. Now I'll take it off. There we go, and I've got thinking of you on there. I'll pop that stamp aside to give it a clean later. Now the other thing I want to do with this is I want to give it some little arrow ends on them. So I'm going to come in from the edge to the centre on one side, and then just cut the excess off there, and then from this edge and meeting at the other point in the centre gives me that nice little flag end on it, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. So I just cut off the excess, start my scissors in the corner, take them into the centre, go back to the other corner, take your scissors into the centre. Then you've got your sentiment done, ready for the card. Now I'll pop that one aside. Let's see how this background's going. It's still pretty wet at the moment. So what I'm going to need to do, I'll just wipe up some of that excess around the edge. You can see already the colours that were there before are starting to move and blend a little bit more. Now what I'm going to do is use a dry edge of the paper towel, because there's a couple of puddles here, and I just want to hold it to the edge, and it will suck up some of that water without removing too much of the colour from underneath. And another bit there. That's it. Now I'm going to have to use the heat gun on this, so this might be a little bit noisy while I dry it off. Get the heat gun here. Okay, it's a little bit damp in some areas, but that's enough for what we need. I'll move the craft mat out of the way. Okay, so this background piece is what we're going to cut our leaves out of. Now the leaves come from the old leaves metal die set that comes in the kit. And I've got my plates for my big shot here. I'm going to add the cardstock onto that. I've got a little bit of tape, again low-tack tape, on my leaves. And I'm just going to choose some interesting areas so I get a little bit of some different colours in there and stick the die on top. Down here where there's a few different colours, and stick the die on. And then maybe over here for this one. Okay, and then pop that plate on top. Grab the big shot. And then run that through. And I like to run it back as well. Okay, let's take that out. Move the big shot out of the way. Okay, let's see what we've ended up with. Turn this over. It's one die I'll put to the side. And that one. And that one. Alright, I've got plenty of that left I can die cut more out of. Let's use a bricker tool and I'm going to lift that up. There's one. Let's lift this one up. These are such pretty dies. Okay, and that's that one. We'll move those out of the way. Okay, there's our die cut leaves. Alright, now we need to put the whole card together. So we have our background piece, which we've stenciled the mica powder onto. We've got our 3 die cut leaves. We've got our words. Now, as a backing for this, I'm going to use just, again, some of the cotton blend cardstock, which will tie the text in with the card. And I'm going to add some double-sided tape onto the back of my background piece. Alright, so I've got some here. What I like to do with mine is I like to run some tape across the top. Trim it off, run a piece across the bottom. Trim it off. Okay, now we do the sides. Over here. Piece down there. Trim it off. And across this side. And trim it off. Now because this is a fairly large card, I'm going to put another piece down the centre. Just for safety. I like to make sure things don't come apart after you've given it to somebody. Alright, let's put that one back together. Right, and then all I'm going to do is just peel one of the backing pieces off. Now that bit's sticky, so I don't want that touching the paper just yet. I'm going to line my top up, and see I can move it around because all the other tape, backing tape's still on. Make sure I've got even edges, and then I can lay it down and push across where that edge is that's had the backing tape taken off. Now I can take the other backing tapes off. That one, it's the second one, and the third one, and last but not least, which doesn't want to come off for me. Let's try a different corner. There we go, the top one. And I'll turn it over and just gently press over the top of those. Right, that's the background done. Now, look and see how these cards as die cuts are going to go on. And I think just there, no, we might do it the other way around. We might move them up a little bit. Yeah, okay, just getting a bit of glue here. Now I don't want to stick these down completely, so I'm going to put this one in the centre, and I'm just going to stick the bottom section down so the top's loose. So a little bit of glue here. I'll just run it over the bottom section at the back. Pop that one down, and then we'll get the next one. And again, just a little bit of glue in the bottom section. And I'll add this one in at the side. And the bottom of this one. And we'll add this one in over here. Put the lid back on my glue. Okay. Now, I'm just going to add a little bit of a edging on this one. I'm going to use the VersaFine Onyx Black ink again, and I'm just going to run it not vertically on it but on an angle, so I don't want to cut my ink pad by running it that way, so I want it on a slight angle, and I'm just going to run it along the edge, turn it around, and we'll do the same on the other side. Just defines the edges just a little bit more. Put that one aside. And I'm going to use some foam dots behind this one just to lift it up a little bit. So put one either end and one in the centre. And we'll take the backing off. It on there. Just a couple of finishing touches left to go. The front cover of the paper pack, which looks quite holey at the moment, has on the back of it some images that you can fussy cut out. So you don't need to sit here and watch me fussy cut. I'm sure you've got better things to do with your time. So what I've done is I've fussy cut one of these butterflies. I'll pop this aside, and ta-da, Para Technology. There is my butterfly already cut out. Bring this back in, and what I'm going to do is on the back of it, I'm going to add some foam dots. So I'm going to cut one in half. add it in on either side. Take the backing bits off. And pop it at the bottom of my group of leaves. And then the last thing, I'm going to use some gold stickles to add a bit more bling. So down the centre of the butterfly, I'm just going to squeeze a little bit out and run it down the body. And then do just a couple of little lines out into the wings. Oops, looks like I've got a blockage. Let me see if I can clear that. Get my pin pricker. Squeeze. There we go. It's all working again. Okay. A couple of little lines coming out from the centre of the butterfly. And a couple of little dots either side. Of the sentiment. Okay, there's the card done. So we've got the one I've done for you, plus the other two that I was showing you earlier. So we have the rectangle card and the journal page. So let's pop that down, see if I can fit them all in. Let me see if you can all see that. Yeah, probably not quite this one. Let's see if I can bring them in just a bit more. There and there. Okay, thanks for spending some time with me today. Hopefully to catch up with you another time.